So my client here is going to be this guy. All right, so I'm back in Photoshop, got my shoe. This is what I want to do. I'm going to double click that background, and then again I'm going to select my wand tool and just click on the area. This looks pretty good. Go to my quick mask mode just to see how well I'm selected here. I need some more work. I'm just going to very quickly build this out and then go through the placement in Photoshop here. Next piece I want to go into is grabbing this shadow piece. So I'm just going to kind of trace this out. Let's see. I'm going to select this piece for now, and then I'm going to use my, where are you? Paths. Under the Paths palette, I'm going to make the selection. It's going to be new. And then I'm going to go, and just to make it a little faster, I'm going to take this magnetic lasso, hold the shift key to add to my selection, and then just drag it along this sole area here. And it got a little messy, so I'll try something else. Doesn't have to be perfect, so I'm just going to use my regular lasso tool. Then again, hold shift just to add to the selection, and I'll just freehand it. Alright. Next, create a new layer. Down here in my swatch here, create a new layer. Go back and select my shoe layer where I want to get this shadow piece off. I'm going to then go to Edit Copy, Edit Cut, select Layer 1, Edit Paste Special, Paste in Place. There are shortcuts for all that, which I would highly recommend to learn, but shortcuts for cut are Command-C, or I'm sorry, the shortcut for copy is Command-C, cut is Command-V, and then paste in place is Command-Shift-Option-V. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to name this shadow. So now when I open this up in InDesign, when I place it in there and go to my Object Layer Options panel, I'll be able to see exactly what layers are what. So that's going to help as well. Luckily, we're not dealing with too many layers right now, so that's good. I'm going to just call this Shoe 1, and I'm going to hold the Alt key, click and drag up, turn off Shoe 1 layer, rename Shoe 1 copy to Shoe 2, and then just repeat the process and then rename that shoe Shoe 3. So again, I've got 3 there, 2 plus my original. So Shoe 2 then, that's what we're working on. So I'm going to go image adjustments. Just real quick, I'll do hue saturation. I'll adjust it just to make it real quick and easy, because we've already kind of gone through some of the basics here. Okay, so that looks like a good shoe. And then Shoe 3, again, I'll just use my hue saturation option here. You know what? I'll do the I'll demo again real quick. I'll go to image adjustments and replace color, and then I'll just do like the laces and all the yellow tones. So see here, I'm clicking with my eyedropper piece onto the yellow laces, and it's grabbing all the yellow tones. And then I'll hit this result panel here, and then just kind of drag this around to see kind of what color would be good for this. None too many, I don't think. That'll work. I'll increase the saturation so it just gets a little brighter. I see some of this stuff here, just kind of this stuff that doesn't look right, so I'm going to actually hold shift with my eyedropper and then click that area just to expand my selection just a little bit more, just to kind of clean it up a little bit. Okay, and then I'll hit OK. That looks actually a lot like what I had. No, actually they're different enough, I think. Alright, so I'll just turn the bottom layer on. I'll go File, Save. Oh, you know what? I'm going to Image and Size. So yeah, obviously I have it at 72 dpi, so I need to resize this entire canvas. So with the resolution, I'm just going to select it and hit 300. And right here under the resample area, I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to keep this unselected, change this to 300. The inch dimensions are plenty. So last piece, doing this step will make your life a whole lot easier when you put this stuff in InDesign. And it sounds very simple, but it will truly make your life easier as far as when you're dealing with sizing these things after their placement. Let's see, go to Image and Trim. Now trim, it's just going to automatically cut everything around here based on, right here, whatever these options I select are, and then what areas we want to trim away. So top, left, right, bottom, that's perfect. And then all transparent pixels I want to trim, okay. And then it's going to trim the image, it's going to crop it down to the pixel. It's going to be pixel perfect, trim. And finally, last step, image mode, CMYK. And then once you're asked whether you want to merge the layers or not, you definitely do not want to merge them because you will lose all of your other beautiful shoe color edits and layers. So I'm going to hit Don't Merge and Save As. And I will just leave it in its native folder. I'll call it Sneaker. Ideally, I would know what the name of this thing was, or otherwise I could just make up a name for it in the catalog. I'll call it Sneaker 1 for now, and then save. Okay, so that is that piece. And going back to InDesign then, I'll open my template up. Okay, I'm going to go up to View, and I'm going to go to Display Performance and Typical Display, just so my the performance of my machine here can stay up, especially since I have a lot of things happening at the same time. I'm going to navigate to pages 10 and 11 here. Under my layers palette here, I'm going to see that I have a layer called Jig Magenta. Now this just tells you what is what, where you're at. I'm in Shoes B. It just is going to help you a little bit. I can turn this eye off, or this layer off by clicking this visibility eye, or this eye symbol. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is click the shoe image, and I can see that I have a bounding box around it. It's this dashed pattern. The reason being is that this image here that we're seeing of the shoe is actually two images grouped together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is click on that, and I'm going to go to Object, Ungroup. Okay, now I'm going to delete the first layer, and now you can see that I have a shadow layer. Let me click on this real quick and go over to my links palette again. Just like last time, this shadow is actually the same Nike Demo Small PSD shoe file. Okay, if I go up to Object and Object Layer Options again, I can see that this is layer 1 turned on in my shoe 3 layer. If I wanted to turn it off, I'll just go ahead and turn that off. What I really want then is just this layer, these two pieces here, for my shoe. I don't want the shadow at this point, which is fine. What I can do then, and it doesn't matter if I relink this image with only the shadow showing or only the shoe showing. It really doesn't matter. It's still the same file, right? So what I'll do is then have this image selected. I'm going to, in my links palette, hit this relink icon. And what this is going to do is actually take this linked file here, and it's going to allow me to choose another file to swap it out. So doing so just by hitting that link icon, I'll navigate to my desktop where I have my shoe images. And then I'm going to look for my shoe1 PSD file, and then I'll hit open. Now InDesign is going to say sneaker1 PSD has different layers than the imported version, which is fine. That's to be expected because I had quite a few layers compared to the one that I just placed. So I'm going to hit OK. So I placed that file. It's kind of awry here, right? It's cropped in oddly, and so on. I can actually click and drag this over and around and fit it and resize it and so on. But there's a faster way to do that. Since I trimmed the pixels, the transparent pixels around this PSD file, there's a super easy way to just fit it into the box here. So the way to do that, and I know the shortcut too, but I want to show you the menu option here, is by clicking this image here. And then I'm going to go over to Object. Then I'm going to go to Fitting. And then I'm going to go Fit Content into Frame. Okay. That's going to automatically fit this perfectly, pixel perfectly into the frame. So I'm going to have nothing cut off, no matter what, not even the slightest detail, which can easily be missed sometimes. All right. So the frame, I'm going to turn my invisibles on. You can see this blue line here. This is the frame. This is the frame at which the image, which if I roll over the image and click on this little circle icon here, you'll see my little hand popping up. I'm going to click on that, and now I'm looking, and now I have the image selected. So it's kind of like this copper line. So the copper line will tell you that you have the image selected, and you very simply hover over the center of the image, and when your hand icon pops up, you'll click. Or this blue outline here is your frame. And so what we did was with that object fitting and then fit content to frame option, we told InDesign to just take this image and perfectly fit it into the frame. And so that's just a quick way of doing it. You can do it manually. You know, it's just going to take forever, right? So obviously this is a little bit big, right? So I can take my directs. So here's a big distinction here, right? The selection tool, if I click this black arrow selection tool and click on an object, I am actually selecting the image and the frame. Okay, so I can move this around, my frame is coming with me. If I take my direct selection tool and click the image here and then drag it around, I'm moving the image within the frame. So you see all that cut off and everything else, almost like a mask. With my selection tool, InDesign is nice enough to actually allow you to then hover over the center point and select the image rather than the frame with the selection tool. So this is kind of your go-to tool, the selection tool here. If you click outside of that circle, you'll hit the bounding box in the frame, in the image within the frame. Otherwise, if your selection tool as well, as you hover over the middle, you can tweak the image within the frame itself. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Let me go then and have my image selected and go Object Transform. Actually, no, I'm going to hit S. So I'm going to use my Scale tool, and that's over here. And I just hit S, right? So I have this shoe image selected. I hit S for my Scale tool, and I'm just going to click where I want my anchor point to go in the middle of my frame here. And this is very Illustrator-like, okay? And then I'm just scaling. Essentially, what I'm scaling then is my preview of this PSD file, okay? Let's see, what else do I need to do? I'm kind of trying to size it a little bit. You can drag out some guides here, so just pull them out exactly like Illustrator. Pull them out from your ruler here. And what I'm doing is I'm just like matching them up with the shoe beneath it, just as my guide. Luckily, there's no like logos or anything on this shoe, so I can actually go with it selected, object, transform and flip horizontally. If I wanted to make it face the same direction, maybe I don't. So I'm going to just click this image and nudge it over to be flush with this guideline. Then I'm going to take the, again, I'm going to hit my S key and then just scale it up ever so subtly, and then it's going to kind of match up with my grid lines and so on. So of course, different shoes, they all fit differently, so obviously my template is going to have to be tweaked just a tiny bit. But before I start tweaking everything, I want to actually just place all my shoes. So I like to take things in different pieces. I like to, step one, edit all of my shoe images, make sure that everything's trimmed perfectly and optimized for print. Step two, I like to go through my layout, place all my shoes, and make sure my layers are showing up pretty good and everything else. So that's how I like to do it. I don't like to tweak things as I'm working along the way. I like to have a plan, and I just like to then execute it. So that's really how I'm going to show you how to do it. So, but the purpose of visibility, I'm just going to nudge these up, just so you can see them easier. So I'm clicking on these elements and nudging them up a little bit. Get rid of that shadow layer. I'm going to have to break the grid just a tiny bit. So my first group of shoes then, this will be the standard that I follow page for page. I'm going to have my guideline here. I'm going to have my guideline here. This is going to become my standard. So at that point, I'm going to select this next shoe and just relink. Hit OK. Instead of going to Object, Fitting, and Fit Frame to Content, or I'm sorry, that was Frame to Content. Object, Fitting, Fit Content to Frame. Instead of doing that for this next one, I'm going to actually do the keyboard shortcut. And then once you do that, you'll just kind of fly through this. And so that is Command, Option, Shift, and E. Command, Option, Shift, E will automatically fit your content into the frame. So that helps a lot. There's countless reasons, or countless, not reasons, but scenarios where that could come into handy for you. Again, I'm going to flip both of these horizontally, nudge them over, and then so on. I can go through all of these and just start placing everything in once all of my shoes are edited. And then once everything's placed, fit in properly, It's just going to be a matter of going in here and selecting the next shoes, object, object layer options, turn off shoe layer 1, turn on shoe layer 2, hit OK. Object, object layer options, turn off 1, turn on 3, OK. And so this is how you can bypass going file place every single time. Just have your different colors in one file and then just turn on and off your layers through InDesign. We'll reduce the amount of files you have stored in your folder, and it will speed up your production time, and you can spend more time working on your different layouts. Is that making sense so far for everybody? Okay. All right. Just so everyone's comfortable. Next piece that I want to go through, this is going to be relevant to your layouts. You can see here I have like this little background element. I'm just going to delete it. I have it all over the place. That's fine. You know, I'm not going to end up using them, but that's just something that I kept in the template just to give some kind of an idea of a real minimalistic background element that could potentially interweave some of the look and feel of the main brand into that. So, you know, how would I sell that? Yeah, these, you know, how do I explain it? These lines can represent movement. There's a gradient that gives the eye the feeling of movement, and that's what Nike's all about. So there's a little little sales point there that I'd recommend everyone to kind of get used to selling their work to people. Half of the battle really is telling people that something's good and explaining why, and that's really about it. Most of the time, I never can just show someone. Well, maybe once or twice you could show someone something and they immediately love it. But once you explain some rationale to them, it's a much easier sell. So there's another aspect to the template as well. I have all of these, all of this type set up with paragraph and character styles. So who's heard of paragraph and character styles? I know that there were a couple people, thank you, that have worked with these already. This is going to make your life a lot easier too. It's literally going to feel like you're not really doing any work at all, which is great because then you can focus on the style, focus on the feeling that you get from every piece of type that you're working with, and typeface that you implement here in the design. I'm using real basic stuff here. I start real basic because I want you to experiment with the type. I'm not looking for the same Helvetica typeface. It's so easy to change the type that there's really no reason not to. I'm not asking you to put any content in here yet. So this is all lorem ipsum text. So this text is just pretty much Latin, and it's not really meant to be read here in the body copy area. So I'm not looking for any actual words there. I'm just looking for you being able to demonstrate that you can actually work with paragraph and character styles in a very basic way and then apply this to your layout. Okay, so let's get started here. Paragraph styles, and let me turn my invisibles on. So to turn your invisibles on in InDesign, you just hit the key W, the W key on your keypad here. What I can do, let me see here if I can find it. Let's see. Okay. you can see here that I have in my type, and this helps me a ton when I'm dealing with type, these paragraph symbols at the end. You can see line for line here. This line, for instance, I don't have my paragraph symbol. This is a paragraph break return. So that means that I typed this in, I hit a hard return on that. Or I'm sorry, a paragraph return on that. The end of this line is a hard return, so that's a shift return rather than a regular return. The difference is that when I hit the regular paragraph return, it's going to add paragraph spacing after or before. It's just really going to treat this whole block here, everything before it, as its own individual paragraph with its own individual qualities and that type of thing. So qualities that you can define in a paragraph style are spacing before, spacing after. You can change the type size and everything else. You can change the fonts, etc. Now that's paragraph style. So that's my first go-to. That's my high-level change if I have an entire paragraph that needs to look exactly the same. Character styles are a little bit different. So in a character style, that is more macro level within the paragraph style. So right here, for instance, and you can see over here in my paragraph and character style palettes, I have things kind of highlight here, right? Like none for character styles and then body copy for paragraph styles. As I click around these different pieces of copy and content, you're seeing between the header and the body here, you're seeing that my header style is a paragraph style for the shoe name area. And then I'm jumping back and forth. So I tend to kind of click around to see what styles are affecting what. And okay, so now I have my body copy paragraph style applied here to this lorem ipsum text. I want to apply, let's say, a bold to an individual letter or word. Instead of going into up here in my palette, which I could certainly do, and doing like just selecting bold. If I'm looking to have something more consistent, I want the same bold every time I make something bold. I want it to have a custom character height, right? Like, so I'm gonna, say I want it bold, but I want it like instead of 10 points, I want it like, let's say 15 points. I can do that way, and it's very manual, and I'll have to go through and do everything very manually like that. Now, let's say the client at the end of the job, and I've spent hours like making things bold in a custom height within a paragraph, to stand out. And let's say client says, you know what, that's too big, and I don't like it to be black. I want it to be like blue. Then you bought yourself just another 3 hours of going through and changing every single piece that you found bold. You're going to have to go through and look every single time. What I want to do is actually do it in a different way. I'm going to select my lorem ipsum little text here, and I'm going to go into my character styles palette, and I'm going to hit this same thing that creates a new layer in Photoshop. It's kind of this box with this folded corner paper piece. And it's going to create a new character style. So I just had clicked it and defined character style 1 here. So I'll double click character style 1, and I'm going to just call it bold large. And so this is the individual macro level style within my paragraph style that I'm going to edit. So if you think, paragraph style is kind of the big picture, and then the character style is kind of that individualized custom macro, or micro style within the macro paragraph style. So after I rename, I can go into here and take my font style down to be bold. Nothing happened out here because I didn't have my preview set, but I'm going to click preview so I can kind of, obviously preview and see what it's going to look like when it's done. I can increase the casing size, right? I'll do it like 14 and I'll hit OK. So from here on out then, I'll turn my invisibles off. from here on out, anytime I need to bold something, I'm just going to go through, and instead of selecting 2 selections up here in my menu over and over again, I'm going to select 1, right? And that's just by defining a character style. But now let's say I have a real pain of a client, and they come over to me and say, well, you know what, I know I asked for the text to be black, but I want it to be blue because I don't know what I like until I see it. Super common problem. What I'm going to do is go into my character styles, double click, make sure I don't have anything selected here with my tools. I'm going to double click bold large character style, and then I'm going to run in here and say, okay, well, what kind of color does this guy want? Does he want blue? Okay. I'll just select that whatever blue color. If this isn't the right blue color, and you can see it's applied across the board, so it takes very little effort whatsoever. If this isn't the right blue that they want, I'll go to swatches, and I'll my swatches palette here in InDesign, and I'll say, okay, well, what kind of color do you want? So I'll just drag this out, my swatches palette, kind of hide this paragraph style piece here on the side. Actually, I'll keep characters out. I'll select the blue that I chose, and I'll say, okay, well, you want a different blue. Well, I'll just create a new swatch out of it. Just the same little page fold icon, new swatch in the swatches palette to create something new. I'm going to double click that swatch here, and I can just kind of drag my sliders around, figure out what kind of color. Maybe they want an orange instead. Okay, we'll do this like really it's almost like football looking orange. Apply that in my swatches palette, put this thing away until I need it again, and then again just jump into these character styles, hit this character color option. You can see there's a ton of options here, right? I'll go through and show some of them, and then just hit my little orange that I want, or that makes the client happy, and then just apply it. Okay, a lot easier than selecting and selecting the copy, going in. It's like even there I couldn't even select it all properly, and then going into swatches and then picking whatever. It's just a huge time saver, and in this way you can really experiment with the type too. So one of the big pieces, I'll pull the paragraph styles out again. One of the big pieces that I want you to experiment with is this header style. This is where your shoe name's going to go. This is where you can, in your paragraph styles, then select your, whatever typeface you think. Turn your preview on and just kind of see what happens with it. What makes more of an impact? What makes sense for the brand? And so on and so forth. Again, you can let's see, increase the tracking, so I can give it more of like that type of a look. I can adjust the size, and you can see, yeah, maybe it's super small. Maybe it's italic. Maybe, so I'm not really spending too much time, but I'm able to really get a sense of how this thing is going to look very quickly, just using these styles. Yep, it's too small, so let me just go back, and this is across the board change here. I don't really like that font, so I don't know if I have no. What do I like? I don't know if I have well, I'll try this. This shot in the dark. Instead of all caps, I can change this to normal. And so what does that do? Like that's just kind of what we can do. And it's going to go across the board, right? So all of your entire catalog is going to be have this apply. Let's say this is a special shoe right here that I want to call out, right? You know, what do? I have it with the paragraph style set to header, right? You know, how do I make this? How do I make this something to stand out without affecting everything else? Well, again, this is a paragraph style. I know that because I have it selected and header is highlighted. What I want to do is then define a micro style on the micro level, a different style to it rather than giving it a new header style. Maybe I just choose to create a new character style, and then I call this like call out shoe, right? So this is a special shoe that I want to actually make it so that it stands out and it's special compared to the other ones. So obviously it's changing without changing everything else as well. You know, it's totally horrible right now, but hopefully this gives you the idea of how you can really essentially experiment on the fly without doing too much damage, right? Say this is not what I'm going for, right? This is not working, and I have this applied on very few occasions. That's fine. I can go into character styles, click on this call out shoe style that I just created, hit this delete, this trash can button, and then InDesign is going to say, okay, well, you're deleting a style, you want to replace it with what? Last time I checked, I had none selected as the character style, so I can hit none. Oh, and that didn't help it. Oh yeah, so I gotta see how it's got a plus here. This means that I had a style overriding the header style, so I can just hit Option and click when I see that plus sign there. Whenever you see that sign, that's trouble. That's trouble. That means that what you're seeing on screen is not what the style is defined as. Every time you see this plus sign, just hold Alt and click it, and it's going to set it back to the default style that you originally had. Okay, so any questions so far? So as you click through, again, just kind of highlight things. See, this is the style for the shoe number here in a catalog of this type. Sent to businesses, kind of a business-to-business catalog here. You would have these different shoe numbers. So then the buyer would just type in these numbers and send it to the seller, who would then just pull these shoes off of the pallets or whatnot from their warehouse or wherever it comes from to fulfill the order. So this is essentially like a business-to-business order number. I'm not asking for you to give me any numbers. This number is fine initially. Eventually, as we refine stuff, we might want to tweak that. I'm not going to make it a requirement. What is a requirement is coming up with some kind of style. Okay. All right, last but not least, again, so I'm going to take my selection tool because I have some type. Oh, let me go back. I'm getting lost here. I have my my type tool kind of ready to start typing stuff in here. I'm going to hit my selection tool to kind of select this box and then click outside of the box to kind of deselect it, just so I'm not affecting anything as I hit my W key to turn on my invisibles again. And the reason being is that I want to zoom in here in this folio. So in these folios then I have the shoe number and it's being overridden by a style. You very simply can, create a new style here, a new character style in this case, and then tweak it to how you like, and then you can just double click to select each of the page numbers and place them in. Otherwise, these page numbers will actually, I'm going to copy cut I'm going to delete this and paste in place. See, I copied 10, and then I pasted it on page 12, and it changed to page 12. So this isn't really the number 10. That's not really the number 12. This is actually a placeholder for the current page number. All right, so I'll explain that a little bit later, I think, because I don't want to kind of over explain stuff any longer. But so what's happening here in this folio, you can see these little dots. I'm going to turn my invisibles on and off. These dots are coming in and disappearing. These just show me how many spaces I have. So spacebar, spacebar, spacebar. It's adding these dots. They're not really there. I'm looking at the invisibles, and this is just very helpful for a designer as they look through type and proofread. You ever wonder, if you have an extra space or something? This is a very easy way to find your extra spaces. To turn on and off those invisibles, you can very simply go to Type, Hide Hidden Characters, Type, Show Hidden Characters. I always get to the menu here. I've never really memorized this shortcut, although that's an option for you as well. Another thing about invisibles too is that you can actually see what is a paragraph, right? This whole piece and this whole piece. I can see what a paragraph is. I can look at the end and see that this is a hard paragraph return. I just shift return that, and you can see this little kind of sideways looking L shape. That's just representative of a hard paragraph return. Otherwise, a shift return at the end if you want to force it down to the next line, the line of type. Okay, and then so besides the invisible pieces, which is going to help you, this other invisible piece here, the hashtag just represents the end of the copy. So that's where the copy ends, essentially. You can see that I actually have some hidden text here. I'm going to actually stretch it out and show you that this is the end of the copy. Right here you can see this little red plus sign on my text box. So that means that there is more text in the text box that is not showing. So I was not proactive into understanding that the larger I make this, it's going to knock this piece down, and then it's going to affect all of the sub-content past it. So this is a little warning sign that shows me, like, hey, you have more text in this box, so you better stretch this thing out to show it, and now it goes away, so it's gone. Which is exactly what I want. I do not want to see that red X, because that's going to get me in a lot of trouble. A way to automatically show that inside content, just hit Control, click, and then I can go over to fitting and then fit frame to content. So content is both the imagery within the frames and then also the type within the type boxes, text boxes. Okay, finally get to my point here. This little piece is actually an image, right? It's vector art. I can take my direct selection tool and select all these points. I can't really manipulate it while it's in here, but what it essentially is a InDesign is treating it like a piece of text within this line of text here, right? So I'll go Command C, Command V. I'll copy it. So obviously this is my shape. What I did was I just pasted my logo into the line of text, which can help if you're dealing with, like, let's say you want like just icons within your body copy or something, and stuff like that. You can very easily place those icons into the line of text, which is super helpful for you getting things aligned perfectly every time. So I'm just going to show you how I did that. Just adding a space here after 2016. Then grabbing this, going to edit, copy, down here, edit, paste. So now this pasted this icon into my line of copy. I can select it, and then I can just, let's see, I can tweak the baseline. Ooh, can I tweak the baseline? Oh, what happened? Oh, I think I crashed. Oh, was it? Okay, try that again. Okay, yeah, I can just kind of up or down that baseline, right? Let's see. I don't know if I can do this. I never really tried it. Nope, that's not really helping at all. So that's the one thing that I like about that, is that I can adjust the baseline, make it move up and down. That's actually all I really do with that. So then essentially I don't have to worry about a piece of vector art like floating around, like an icon if I'm using it, or so on and so forth. And then I can just copy and paste it over and over again into the right places without having to worry about it opening up or moving around and stuff. That aspect was pretty effective when I was doing menus, restaurant menus.